to the channel. Thanks for subscriptions, thanks for comments. Today is a little change of what we've been doing, which we've been doing a lot of panel work and woodwork and stuff. We've still got plenty of that to do. But I thought today we'd try and get some of the electrics in and explain how this step-by-step system, as these go in, as we go around with our panels and boards, how it's all going to work. But before we start that, let's just have a little talk about this. I was going to do this today, which is the cubicle for the shower. This is moving out. I've taken one of your ideas on with this, and it's going to come to here. We're going to probably do that next time because I want to save this frame. This door will move forward, which will allow me to have a better set of steps. So that's on that one. We're going to be working through this panel here to combine into the engine bay panel, which obviously we're not going to fit that today, but we're going to start making it up ready to go down there. We'll have a look where it's going to go. So we're going to start putting some stuff in here. This will then start getting ready for when we start doing this panel, and everything will start talking to each other at some point. So that's what we're on today. This is looking good. This is looking very good at the moment. It's got a, I'd say a 6 or a 7 shine on that now. We know from last time we made this one up ready. That's ready to go on here. I'm waiting for, get the right way around. I'm waiting for the fuses, switches, sorry, the switches to come along. I'm still waiting for a plate. Once they arrive, we're away. This will go on as well. So, yeah, let's see what we're on to. Let's see what we've got. I'm going to have a little tidy up before we show you anything or do anything, but here I've had a bit of an assortment of what we're going to be doing, and down here is a panel for the engine bay, which again we're going to do a little bit with today. Where are we going to start then? Firstly, why I'm putting the electrics in now, why I've started to put the electrics in now, or starting to, is because as a panel becomes ready, why not? You're moving on, and it'd be nice to have some little things working in the boat. It'd be nice to have maybe some USBs working somewhere, or switches or something working for the first time in 10 years. That would be another plus. So let's see what we're doing today. Right, the first thing we're going to be doing is the engine panel itself. That was the one that goes into the engine. I'm just thinking I don't actually have the complete kit for this yet, but I've got enough to do the entire one side, say a port or a starboard engine, which is the odd bit I need to put in, and a couple of master fuses. So let's have a look at this. This is the engine panel. This is the one that goes in the engine, and it's just a domestic panel. You don't have to use these, you can make your own or something if you want to. I tend to use these because they're pretty much weatherproof, damp-proof, and you know, and it's nice, you've got a nice area to work. Now, these come with these metal back plates, which are lovely, because potentially you can use these as your ground, like your negative for your battery. But I don't like that. I like to control all the electrics as they go in, so I like some control. I don't want this plate to be a negative. I would rather have a negative rail sitting there. So we're not using that. That can go. We'll probably use that somewhere, but not here. We're going to use very straightforward, basic wood. Is insulated, perfect. So something like this will go in here at the top, and this will become our negative rail. So we've got that one. I'm going to just leave that like this for a second, so we can then discuss as we go, and I'll bring you down to have a look at this as we build it together. So that's our negative rail. What else goes in here? The preheat solenoid. That goes in here as well. What this does is this will energise. We'll explain this as we go, how they work, and then it will send a signal to your preheater to heat up your engine. Now that will go somewhere on there like that. How does it work? Right, moving into the Helm panel, which we will start on shortly as well, you will have a fuse bank, something similar to this, one for each side for each engine. So your port engine and your starboard engine will have one of these. Now what's missing out of this, which is something else I'll talk about in a little while, about having the black book or the black diary, we need to start filling that in now, is you've got what's called a mini mega. There's a fuse that goes in here, across here, and it's going to be around a 50-60 amp fuse. And then what happens is, when eventually your engine panel's in, you'll have a couple of isolators which will come from your battery. They will go to the mega fuses, which will be something like this. Now a lot of people put the mega fuses right next to the battery, some of them actually put them on top of the battery. I tend, because my batteries are close to my panels, I tend to just put them in the panel. So basically, there's your mega fuse. That's your mega fuse. That will then go to an isolator. The isolator, this is a 100 amp one, never going to use that. Are a lot bigger, they're going to be probably 1800 amp ones, because we're going to use it as a starting isolator as well, so we want to control all our power. A lot of boats don't have this. If you haven't got it, don't worry, it's really common, but it's nice to be able to isolate your ignition circuits for the engine, if you can do that at least. You have to think about how your wire's coming in. Now we know we've got two battery cables coming in to these terminals here on the top. So we've got one coming from the battery or isolator to the port, isolator to the starboard. So they're probably going to come in the cabinet, come in, flow down quite nicely onto there. These are going to go outwards to the preheaters on the engine, and we'll explain what these do in a little while. These here, these little ones here, these are your ignition, your preheater button or your ignition switch, which basically when you press this button when your ignition is on, bingo, you'll energise this solenoid, and then that will make the circuit across. That will then go to the preheaters to heat them up, and at the same time you can use these auxiliaries to go to your lamp on your control board or your buzzer, or both. I always use both. So that is pretty much it here. Battery, negative, negative, switch, switch. We want to fuse now with the starter motor. Now we'll go here, and there'll be 100 amps, you know. So and I tend to use these. Might not even use these. They might just be redundant. Might use them for something else. You might see no way doing it on the way through. But protect your, when you come from your ignition, which is here, when you go onto your final click and you start up your engine, basically, as I've said before, you will disconnect all your auxiliary power for that momentary second while it's getting the shock power. It does it for a reason, so you're not shocking the sensors, and so potentially you could lose your ignition signal if you were using this as your backup, and plus the fuse is not going to be big enough. So that signal from this switch will come down through its own fuse, which I'm thinking about putting here. It may go in the top cabinet, but for now we're going to put it here. Right, let's do that. Bang it here, because we know we can have a nice cable run straight into it. We do the same both sides. I've got another one to go here, I haven't got it yet. So, but that's on its way. So, circuit. Preheater on engine. Will come from here round onto the engine, heat up. Button or ignition will energise this through this fuse bank, which will be up the top via your master fuse setup. Now we'll talk about what this does in the Helm panel. Basically, one's going to be for your ignition. We've got two spares here, they will get used. This will be a master fuse going here, hence the black book, which we'll talk about later. These need to be ordered. And so basically your preheaters will be coming from one fuse, your ignition will be coming from another, and I'm now thinking, without a shadow of a doubt, I might even possibly use one of these upstairs instead of these for my ignition fuse, so for my starter motor. But I'm still going to put two of these in here because I guarantee you they will be used. There'll be more go on this panel. We've still got to look at where this is going to be going in the engine bay, because we've got to think that either side of this box we're going to have some isolators somewhere or local to it for your engine. But basically, just think of it this way: as the boat sits in the, as you're sitting in the centre of the boat, port engine, starboard engine. This side is all for port, this side is all for starboard. We have a fuse mounting here. We might not use it for the ignition yet, we don't know, I probably will, but that's just for the starter motor. But we've got a wrap, we can put a cable track in here now if we want to, so we can tie it up. But we're going to come back to it, because I'm going to show you a little way of getting this cables to the helm. We're using Copex and Copex glands. So we're now heading to the helm panel. Okay, let's have a point to point. I'll use my screwdriver. Here. One more of these will go here. We know that. Unfortunately, it didn't arrive. This will be a fuse. This will power up this fuse bank. One of these will basically go up to the ignition. So that'll probably come up, I don't know, come up that way round and up to the ignition, nice and tidily. And then the ignition will come back to this one here. So when the ignition switches in the auxiliary position, this box will become live. This will then liven up all your sensors and your gauges and everything else. Basically, this is going to be firing up, basically back up to the gauges, and it'll be the signal wires what are coming all the way through, all the way back down through the grey box in the engine bay, and then off to the sensors on the engine. So that's how that's going to work, basically. I have seen systems where they've used one fuse for all the gauges, and that's rubbish. Don't do it. You've got to try, if you're doing it from scratch, especially from scratch, or even you're doing a mod, try individual ones. And the reason I use fuses is because if you use circuit breakers, sometimes the signal you get from the sensors isn't as good as it should be. This board, if I can step into the tank now, will go just there. And then either side of this board will be your engine isolators, just here and here. So we want to bring this out to about there. Okay, so that's a board we need to cut, and then we need to bolt on some mounts underneath. So, and then as before, once that board's in place, we'll have our connectors, our Copexes coming from here along up into the helm panel, the helm panel up to the console. Then our main panel power will probably come into here, and then out to our engine, probably a bit lower with our sensors. So that's how that's going to work. Obviously you're going to need more power down there for other things, like the heating system will be down there, but that's a separate panel altogether. That runs entirely off the leisure battery side. So that's going to have its own fuse circuit anyway. Oh dear, I have some bad memories down here. Blimey, do I. Okay, so how do we connect the grey panel, this, which will be positioned down somewhere down here in the engine bay, to the helm? I use this one. It's Copex. It's very flexible stuff. And basically, you'll drill a hole in the side of the panel, and you'll insert a Copex gland, 20mm. These are 20mm. There's two ways of using these. Basically, they snap on like this, and then they go into the panel, and then you just screw that on the end, and your cables then run through to wherever they're going. When you buy anything like this, sometimes you're better off buying an entire panel, because this is quite cheap to buy, When you start to buy these individually, they're about £3 or £4 each, depending what type you're buying. And the circuit breakers, which are, as you see, I've cannibalised this already. They are, again, £5–10 each. I think this whole panel cost me about 30 quid, you know, so, and I've cannibalised it. I've used all the circuit breakers somewhere, used a couple of switches, I've even used a bit of the back plate. They all just pop out, you can use them all, they're all the same. These are the ones I like, they've got LEDs on them, got these big, great big green things. So they get used somewhere else. So typically if you're buying them, sometimes it's better off to buy a full panel, chuck the panel away. Now, next one, when you're starting to do your wiring, again, earlier on, like I said, push button for preheaters or ignition. Ignition doesn't really matter, it's up to your own preferences. The only difference is, make sure you get an ignition like this one where you've got the preheat function on the ignition, where you then switch over, bypass the auxiliary until you start. With a button, it has a bonus feature. It means on a really cold day, you can actually press the button in and start the engine if your battery's good enough. So you're preheating the diesel as it goes in the engine as well. But if your engine's that bad at starting, you should start looking at your engine. Right. Helm panel. Well, into panel, going into the engine bay. There, partially completely ready to go. Coming around into the helm panel itself. Yeah, we've got 2 or 3 items building up now. There's going to be probably about another, I don't know, probably half a dozen to go in there. But we've got nice through routes coming through up into our panel here. So you can see now we're getting some routes. Here's our route through to the main cabin. And down here is, you can see it, this is where our Morse will go. We need to be thinking about that soon. Main panel on the side, yeah, we're looking good. And looking around, all this stuff's got to be packed away. It's getting a proper mess in here now. Our diesel lid, which is going to be stripped, blanked, whatever, maybe remade, we'll see. Okay, that's number 17. Now, it's been a lot of electrical stuff today, and there's a lot more panel stuff to come on the next one, because we can't progress one side without the other. So, but what we are looking at on the next one, I think, is we are going to move that wall out of the way in the shower room, just get rid of it, and then we can have a look. If we've got any more electrical items turn up, we'll get them in quickly, because I think there's going to be a day of wiring coming probably in the next month, just to get some of these things interconnected. And then we'll go over the black book system I use, which is basically simple. Write it down if you need it. There's a few bits didn't turn up, which I should have had, and that's down to me, I didn't order it. Right, take care of yourselves, appreciate everything, see you soon, and hopefully you get a couple of little shorts of how we progress during the week as well. Take care and thank you.